welcome back to the Always Reading Book Club. It is your girl Kiki Reader, and we're jumping back into another series. We are doing the His for a Week series. And so the author of this series is M. Brown, and it does have 5 books in it, but they're good books. So we are going to go ahead and jump into book 1, which is called Bought. So the book opens up with one of our main characters, a guy named Ben Lee, who is having a drink with his cousin Jason Lee, and Jason's friend Derek and Jake. So Ben doesn't really like Jake and Derek, but he kind of stays cool with them because Jake's father owns a sports agency. It's like the largest sports agency. And so Ben's father is over the Chinese basketball league. And so he wants to kind of turn that league into like a real contender. So that's why he kind of stays around the guy. But he really can't stand him. The guy's a prick. And as we go on, you'll completely agree with me. So the guys are having a drink. They're having a discussion about an auction called the Scarlet Auction. And so basically you bid on women, and they're yours for a week. So they're planning to go to it tonight. So Ben wasn't too keen on going, and he was like, he's okay. He was kind of interested because of the fact that, most of the women there are they have kinkier interests, and so he's not really into vanilla sex. So, that's kind of right up his alley. So then it goes to the actual Scarlet Auction, and we meet a woman named Kamani Taylor. Kamani is a journalist, and she's participating in this auction. So we find out that she's there to go undercover to write a piece about it, the dangers of the auction, because her roommate Marissa had participated in this auction, and then she came home like all bruised up. And so it took a lot for Kamani to get the information out of Marissa because, they make them sign NDAs. She didn't want to say anything. And so finally she was able to pry the information out of her, but she couldn't get Marissa to, try and press charges or do anything. So another reason Marissa didn't want to say anything was because also Marissa made 20 grand for that week because they get, I think it's 20, no, it's like 30 or 40% of whatever the total price is that the guys pay for them. So if she said something, she was also going to lose that 20 grand. And the truth of the matter is, yeah, they're doing it because they do kind of need that money. They also have to pay like a $2,000, basically it's non-refundable, a $2,000 fee to even get into this auction. Even the payout's pretty great, so that was another reason why she was pretty hesitant with it. So because of that, Kamani's decided she's going to go undercover. 2 reasons. Yes, she wants to do this expose, but she also wants to try and get on with the San Francisco Chronicle because that's where this is taking place, in San Francisco. And so she wants to work for the newspaper. Even though newspaper is a dying media, there's still people that are, they're hardcore journalists, and the dream is to always work for, a prestigious newspaper. And so she's 27, and that's what she wants to do. She still wants to work for that publication. So she has a couple of reasons as to why she wants to go undercover and do this, right? So a lot of the girls, they'll put more, they're actually told when they're signing their NDA and they're going through the paperwork, they're told, the kinkier stuff you're into, the higher you'll go for, right? And you want to go for a higher price because that means you get more money in return. So the women in here, they have to be, they're young. I mean, they're between the ages of like 20 and 30. Doesn't really go beyond that. Virgins can go up for like maybe like 100 grand. So, so you think, actually it's 40%. So you think 40% of that, that's 40 grand. kind of nice for a week's worth of work. So there's this young blonde girl there, and she actually winds up going for about $80,000, and Kamani went for $30,000, and she was bought by the same guy that bought the little blonde girl, because the little blonde girl was a virgin. So we find out the blonde girl, her name is Claire. Total ditz. She lives in a fantasy land. She thinks this is her way of meeting her billionaire, just like in the books that we love to read. And that it's going to be this magical experience. Okay, so she's all in the clouds when it comes to this. And so as soon as they're done with the auction, they're swept away, and they have to get in a limo, and they're going somewhere. They don't know where they're going. The only thing they have is like their purse, and that's pretty much it. So while Kamani's looking through her bag, she notices her cell phone's gone, as well as like she had a can of mace, and they've taken it out. Now her pens are still in there, but they're actually recording devices, but they look like regular pens, so that's why they didn't remove them. And she has 3 of those, so she's got to make those count. She's got to get the information on those 3 pens. So they're going through. Look, they're going north of San Francisco. This is a little further out than Kamani's been. They've been traveling for like a couple of hours, and I think they wind up being in like Ukiah. So they're like going up in the mountains and stuff. And Kamani's getting worried. And she asked, the driver, like, where are you taking us? And he's like, no, I'm English, so he couldn't speak English, so he couldn't tell her. And so that made her a little nervous. When they stopped through a truck stop, she was thinking about bolting, but it was kind of like, if you bolt, you don't have a story. So it's like, you either going to commit to this or not. And I'm like, you've already paid $2,000. You might as well at least see what's going on. If it gets to be too much, then I can understand it. But it's like, you ain't even done nothing yet, and you ready to bail. So I'm like, how good are you going to be at this, So the other girl, like Claire, wasn't worried about the fact that she didn't have her cell phone, because she had already told her family members that, she was going for a me weekend. She needed a spa weekend, some me time, and she didn't want to be bothered. So it didn't bother her, but Kamani needed to keep in touch with Sam, who is like her connect that she knows that works at the San Francisco Chronicle. And so she kind of needs to stay in contact with him, because, he's aware of what she's going to do, and that this can turn into clearly, a potential dangerous situation. So it kind of makes sense why she was worried. But still, if you want the story, if you want to do deep dives, like, this is what you have to do. Period. So they finally get to the cabin, and it's a beautiful 2-story cabin, looks gorgeous. And so Claire, of course, is like, yes, I knew it was going to be this fabulous. She's thinking, we're going to go in here. It's going to be this, just awesome looking cabin. Go inside. It is nice. It's real nice. And then the driver takes them to where they're going to sleep. Open the door, and there's nothing in there but like a mattress on the floor. And there's not even a box spring. Just a mattress. And so I'm just like, oh shoot, like this is finna get real. Like this is about to get really real. And so Claire was still in La La Land, that's where her mind was. And she figured, okay, this is just Master, testing us just to kind of see, how we react. But, we're going to go shopping And she's thinking they're gonna get these grandiose rooms and stuff once the master gets there. So then the master shows up. It's Jake. And Jake kind of looks like Bradley Cooper. So when Claire starts talking, he tells her to shut the fuck up. He's like, did I tell you to talk? He's like, I didn't ask for your name. He's like, matter of fact, you'll be slut 1 and she'll be slut 2. I was like, oh hell, this finna get a little crazy. And so he makes Claire come over to him and like start giving him a blowjob. And then he's like turning to Kamani. He turned to Kamani because he's looking at her, because Kamani's a black girl, Claire's a white girl. So he's looking at her, and she said something to him about like, do we get a safe word? And he's like, bitch, did I tell you could talk? And he's like, you don't even piss unless I tell you to. And she was about to ask him something else, and then he slapped the shit out of her. And then he slapped her again. And then he was like, are all you NIG and as dumb as you? I was like, oh my gosh. And then he like stuffed it. You know, Claire was giving him a blowjob, so he just shoved his dick down her throat and came all over her face. So that was real magical. So he gets after he's done with her, he goes down, because what it was is he was pissed off that Kamani, like, she didn't want to do it. You know, first of all, she didn't want to suck him off. And he was just so degrading, just disgusting. And like, I get that whole dom sub type of thing, but he's just, you know, this is on another level. This is something else. So later that morning, because they got there pretty late, like in the wee hours of the morning, probably around 4 or 5 in the morning is when they got to that cabin. So Ben comes up later that morning, and he sees the girls in the kitchen and they're kneeling. And so Kamani, Jake had made Kamani like take strip. And so he let Claire have on clothes. It was like some pink tight dress. And so Ben looks at him, and then he's talking to Jake about some business with the basketball player named Terrell, I think Jenkins, that he wants to play for the Chinese league. And so, you know, Ben's trying to get Jake. He's like, call the guy right now. Let's try and set up a meeting. And so while Jake's on the phone trying to call Terrell, he goes over to the women. And he asks them how long they've been kneeling. And so Kamani whispers to him 3 hours. And he knows they haven't eaten because he can hear their stomachs growling. So he's like, Jake, you not going to feed them? Like, what the hell, you know? So he gives Jake comes over to the kitchen, gives the blonde girl, like Claire, gives her a jar of pickles, and then he walks away. So then Ben turns to Kamani, and he sees that her face is bruised. And so he asked Jake, like, what happened to her? And so, of course, Jake doesn't respond. And so Ben decides, you know, he wants Kamani. First of all, when he saw her, he wanted her anyway. So, you know, Ben Lee, he's a Chinese guy. But when he saw Kamani, like, he was like, shit, you know, she's a beautiful black woman. And he wanted her. And clearly she was being mistreated. And so he was like, I'll take her off your hands. So at first, Jake was like, hell no. You know, he's like, I've never had black pussy. I'm like, well, damn. And so Ben offered him $200,000, and then he accepted it. So Ben, of course, was he was a lot nicer than Jake. But Kamani was, you know, she's still on high alert because, you know, she just got slapped the shit out of her, you know, and has been kneeling for like 3 hours. So she doesn't know, like, okay, are you legit, or, you know, you just ain't showed the crazy side yet, you know? Ben gave her his coat because, remember, she's naked and she clearly was cold. So he gave her his jacket, his coat, and then he gave her a sandwich